Call this meeting of Patricia A. Hannaford Regional Technical School District Board together. It's Thursday, December 15th at 6 p.m. I'd like to start with introduction of members, so I'll do the ones that I can see online. I'll start with Tiffany.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Love. I am a WIB member of the board from Middlebury, Vermont. Thank you.
Thank you. Nick.
He's muted. You're muted, Nick.
Well, that's why you didn't hear me. Nick Colston, living in Shoreham, waiting for snow, but representing ACSD.
Steve Rooney.
Steve Rooney from Starksboro, representing the Mount Union School District.
Kim Farnham, I live in New Haven, and I am the Community at Large member representing the Mount Abraham School District.
Judd.
Judd Markowski, resident of Bridgeport and a WIB member.
Bill.
Bill Peterman, Middlebury, Workforce Development.
And online I have one administrator.
Tim Williams, assistant.
And then in the room. Yeah. Thank you. In the room, Steve?
Steve Orzak, I live in Middlebury and I represent the ACSD board.
Christina?
Christina Macklin from North Ferrisburg, and I'm the Addison Northwest School District representative.
Linda?
Linda Barrett, clerk.
And then Jay?
Jay Stetzel, assistant director for the Career Center.
And is Patrice the wizard behind the curtain?
Yes,
she is. Just saying.
Hi, yes, would you like to introduce yourself?
Patrice Alexander, administrative assistant.
I can't see you.
she just jumped out. Yeah, she tried. And Suzanne, we have one attendee. Brenda Logie is one attendee in the meeting, just so you're aware of that as well.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved, Kim.
It's been moved by Kim, and Tiffany waved her hand for a second, I believe. Is there any discussion around the agenda? Hearing none and seeing no hands raised in the room, we'll proceed to vote. And all in favor of the agenda as printed, please say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed. Brenda, did you have a comment for tonight?
I do not have a comment tonight. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. So since we approved the agenda, that means the minutes were approved. Nick, can you read off the monthly accounts, please, if you have them with you?
I do. So the bond, the capital project, we paid $290,305 from the general fund. These are all for November. We paid out $143,323. From the enterprise revolving fund, we paid out $11,983. Student activities, $15,646. Adult education, $51,640. And then payroll, one payroll on the 11th for $96,668. A second payroll for $53,332, and then the other payroll for that period was $40,501. I think most of these were approved by Suzanne and myself.
Yeah. So if, like I have said before, if anybody wants to join in the excitement of reviewing bills or learning how to review the bills, come on down. We'll show you how to do it. Thank you, Nick. So moving on to policy.
Suzanne, Linda just wanted a clarification on the first payroll was 94,000. I think Nick said 96,000.
94,668, I think.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, did I say 96? Yeah. Oh, yeah. My eyes are going at my age.
It's small writing.
How do you play golf then, Nick? Oops.
Yeah, golf ball's bigger than these numbers.
Oh, okay. Any other questions on that? No, okay. Policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting, I'm gonna say must be Tim.
The document has been shared with you, and there are a couple sections in that document. The first one is any risks incurred. There are no violations of the prescribed financial constraints as outlined in the monitoring report, policy 2.3, financial conditions and activities presented to the board in September. Revenue and expenses are monitored through the use of internal controls. All state and federal funds received by the district are facilitated via direct deposit from the Agency of Education. Assessment of funds received from another school district or agency are received by check. Each deposit is recorded and classified according to the district's charts of accounts. Cash receipts are primarily received by either the district's revolving fund or student activity fund. These receipts are accounted by two parties in order to verify the amount then deposited in the appropriate account. And there's some additional detail in support of those statements. And for the third item in the policy, the current fiscal year budget provides the same or additional funding for board prerogatives as established in the governance investment policy, which is titled 4.8. No additional programs or major expenditures have been added to the current year budget that have not been approved by the board of directors.
Does anyone have any questions for Tim on policy 2.4?
Clarification, we're not modifying this policy. This is just a required reporting on what's contained in the policy.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay.
Right. So if there are no questions for Tim on the report, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Steve Orzek, second by...
Yeah. So,
Jeff.
second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve policy 2.4, financial planning and budgeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Suzanne, you muted yourself.
Any abstentions? Seeing and hearing none, the motion has passed. Budget development status FY24. Tim?
Yes, happy to do it. Mark is attending to a family situation that's not really good. So our thoughts and prayers are with him and his family right now. I could share with you the screen if that's a possibility. I could show some numbers of where we are at the moment. Patrice, would we be able to do that? While they're setting that up, we're in draft 3 of the budget. We've been through a couple of drafts of the budget, and the numbers are coming down a little bit, but we are in a situation where our debt service is, the new debt service is putting a strain on the budget. And Patrice and Jay, it says the host is able to participant screen sharing.
So you should be a co-host now, Tim. Can you?
Yeah.
So can you share now?
Yep, I think so.
the budget drafts on the drive, or do we have to go in
I don't see them.
through that?
Okay, are you able to see the screen?
Just the presentation.
No, the budget that we saw yesterday,
Yeah.
like,
Those in the room?
Hey, in the room, can you see the screen?
yes.
Yes, can, yes.
Okay. Okay, so fiscal year 23, the year we're currently in, was a $4.1 million budget.
Okay, yes.
And draft 3 of next year's budget, we're currently at $4.755 million. And that's a difference of $651,000 and some change, which is, almost a 16% increase. So we brought this down from draft 1 and 2. We started out in draft 1, I think about 19% higher. So we brought it down each time. And I'll go into some of the underlying numbers that go along for this coming budget. So one of the big contributors to the increase is the debt service. Our debt service line item is going to go up 568.5% because of the new debt that's incurred. We have $120,000 a year of debt from debt service that will retire in 4 years. And then we're adding $682,000 of new debt to cover the renovations that were approved by the voters in a 3-to-1 margin. So the renovations are going to cover end-of-life mechanicals, asbestos removal, and energy efficiency implementations for lighting and solar. We're also seeing an increase in health insurance. That's going to go up about 5%, about $24,000. Now, what we're budgeting is a 12.5% premium increase is what we're anticipating. We're hoping it's less, but right now we feel we're safe budgeting 12.5% premium increase. So you're probably wondering, how do we get to 12.5% premium increase and get to 5% increase in that line item? Well, the difference is staffing. We'll have a smaller staff, eliminating some administrative position and a vacant part of an English position. So there's some things we've done personnel-wise to reduce FTEs, thereby reducing premiums like health insurance. We're also going to see an increase in dental of about 20%, but the dental line item is a small line item. So to help counterbalance that, because as I mentioned, personnel-wise, we're our salary line item for all salaries, organization-wide, is going to be down about $3,000 overall. And if you look at the pie chart for draft 3 of the budget, you'll see salaries and benefits combined to get about 69% of the budget, which is smaller slices of the pie than the current year budget. So there's 2 slices of pie I'd like you to look at. You see the salaries one, the blue slice, and the debt service one, the gray slice. Keep an eye on those 2 slices, and we'll talk a little bit more about those 2 slices on the next screen.
Tim, can I ask a question? So I
Yes.
don't forget it. Related to staff salaries?
Yes.
Does that figure include replacing the vacancies we have? Or
Some of the vacancies are being eliminated.
Okay,
We're going down through attrition.
okay. But,
So-
and other vacancies we still have to fill though, and is that accounted for in the budget?
You mean like
the
business manager?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. And adult ed, but adult ed and curriculum coordinator, that's being reshuffled into
Yeah.
a smaller FTE
yeah,
number
okay.
than it currently is now. So this slice of the pie, remember the last slice of salaries was 50% of the budget. In the current fiscal year, the salaries amounted to 58% of the budget, and you can see the debt service is only a little less than 3% of the budget, that gray slice. Or in the proposed budget, the gray slice is a lot bigger and the salaries is a lot slightly smaller. So when we have those budget numbers, we're looking at what that means as far as tuition, FTE tuition. And without the debt, estimated tuition for next year would be 11.7 or 11.8. with the new debt, that goes up to 16.3 basically. And as compared to the tuition for the current year, you can see if we didn't have that debt, the change would be almost 20% downward. And with the new debt, the change is about 11%, 12% upward. And if we carry those tuition numbers over and include into it the money from the state, you get in the bolded line, the total technical center tuition, that would be the advertised rate. We're looking at $27,170 per student with the new debt, or it would have been $22,648 without the new debt. And at the bottom, the very bottom line, you can see what those mean in percentages. If we didn't have the new debt, the established tuition, the published tuition would go down about 7%. As it stands now, it's going to go up about 11.5%. So some final thoughts. We have more revisions to go. We're looking to strategically use some reserve funds to counterbalance the 4 years of debt remaining of the old debt. That will help long term. We'll use our savings account basically to pay for something that has an end in sight, and that end in sight is a 4-year process to eliminate the old debt. That'll provide some relief for the budget and bring those budget numbers down. The other thing we're looking to do, and it's heading in the right direction, is our tuition. The higher the enrollment that we have and the 6-semester average, the less per student the costs are for tuition. So those are things that we're looking to work on. So that's it in a nutshell, and I'm happy to discuss or talk about anything related to that.
Somebody questioned in the budget policy.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I had a question.
Nick? Sorry, Steve Orzik.
Someone asked in the budget policy about the $60,000 delta for general administration. You said you would get back to us with a breakdown of that. How that was, I mean, it is one of the more significant increases other than the debt servicing. And I believe we were asking for details on that. Do you have any of that breakdown?
Yeah, a large chunk of that is due to the superintendent's salary line item. In the current year budget was $110,000, and it's not anymore. And there's also other increases in other salaries. We're not just talking the director and assistant director. We're talking Patrice, and we're talking other people related to administrative functions and the services that go along with that. It's not increased positions. It's not increased people. It's just the cost of doing business. The superintendent line item was woefully underfunded.
Are there any other questions for Tim?
Yeah, Suzanne had a hand up.
Steve Rooney, sorry. And then Nick, you can go next.
I don't know if I have a question so much as my general feeling about it is I really appreciate the work being done to try to make this number a little more palatable. I just want to be sure that, since the voters did overwhelmingly approve the bond itself, I just want to be sure we're not looking so hard at the base budget to try to make the bond number more palatable that we're potentially doing some kind of short or long-term harm. You're talking about not filling some positions and taking attrition, whether or not, I don't know particularly what positions those are, and whether or not that's something we really want to hold on to for some reason, and we're sacrificing it simply to make a number look better that people are expecting to be higher anyway. Those are my only real concerns.
Yeah, and I'll respond to that as if it was a question. I would have been going down this path whether or not we had the new bond, the new debt. I believe in being efficient.
Sure.
And as you all do, I mean, I'm not claiming that nobody wants to be efficient. But I think that this is a fiscally sound budget that we're building and looking hard at what resources we have and how we can reshape those resources to be more fiscally responsible and provide good service. So as an example of that, we've got a vacant adult ed position right now and a vacant curriculum coordinator position that amounts to more than a 1.0 FTE. I can't remember the exact number. It might be 1.3 or 1.4. I just don't remember anymore. And we're going to a 1.0 there. And I think we can have better service by combining those two positions into one. First of all, we'll be able to get somebody for a full-time position as opposed to two half-time positions or two part-time positions. And adult ed and curriculum coordinator are a good fit together as far as what tasks have to be done. Because the adult ed coordinator should fully understand what curriculum we're actually running. And not that the old adult ed coordinator didn't, he did. But any new one would need to understand how that all fits together.
Nick Costin?
Yes, we went through the version 3 a couple of nights ago, and it looks pretty solid. I just had one question, Tim, on one of your slides that you put in the presentation to the sending schools, which shows the enrollment by partner school. And I think it's very significant that the biggest drop, I don't know if you had that slide available, but
is that the one you're looking for?
yes. It's actually I would have put the red on MUHS.
Well, the red is there because I'm preparing for the 20th when I go to Mount Abe. So I'll just slide him over. Is that what you want?
Yeah, that's the one I want.
Okay.
And those numbers, Suzanne, and Steve as ACSD Middlebury representatives, I think we have some work to do.
And they saw this in Tim's presentation last Monday, and they agreed that they have some work to do.
Yeah, and they came to that conclusion. I didn't have to say anything. They arrived there on their own.
Do we need to have a sort of action agenda to see if they're making progress? It could be a number of factors, including IB, but it would be nice to understand how those numbers can go up.
Yeah, and we've already been in discussions with the high school staff over there and talked about maybe some scheduling changes that they might be able to make that they hadn't considered, that they can easily make, that would make it more palatable for students to be able to come over to the Career Center for CTE courses. For example, Theory of Knowledge is an important course in the diploma program for IB. And in the past, they've scheduled it whenever they felt like scheduling it. And we asked them to consider putting that in the middle of the day so it couldn't conflict with either of our two sessions. And their response was, well, sure, we can do that. But, you know, it was never considered. It was never brought up. It was never thought about on their end because they didn't understand what impact that course could have if it's scheduled at an inconvenient time for CTE.
Okay.
Yeah. Nick, are you all set? Because Judd's got his hand up.
I'm done.
Judd?
Just a quick aside, I have two children. One is in high school and one is in middle school. They both are in the Middlebury district. I've been a Career Center board member and somebody who's pretty passionate about this whole area of work in general. So I've been pushing my kids to take any career center opportunities to go over there and visit and do the things over the years. And I know that one of my kids was in middle school during the COVID era, so that may have skewed things. But I was very surprised at how little within even the Middlebury district, it seems to be how little the middle school and the early high school push the kids into saying, hey, this might be the right answer for you. So I wonder if there's a way to try to get some of those teachers, facilitators, whoever is the right person, to expose more of those kids to the possibilities at the Career Center. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. I'm not the one who's the right guy to ask what those areas of improvement are or how to achieve it. But after observing my kids going through this, I'm sort of surprised at how little literature comes home, and I feel like there's steps that we could use to recruit more students. Thank you.
Thanks, Jen. And I will follow that up with, at the ACSD board meetings, Jason Campbell, who's the high school principal, Justin Campbell, has said numerous times that he is open to different pathways for students and whatever pathway works for those students. So I think that's a change. I feel it's a change in tune and thought process. So I'm thinking that, and I'm hoping that that will turn around into creating at least more opportunities for students to come over and see the programming, which would then hopefully cause more students. But that's my hope. I can't guarantee it'll happen, but.
Well, from what I've seen, I think that's accurate. I believe, now of course I wasn't here last year, but my perception is that the mindset is shifted a little bit from administratively at the high school, and that's a good thing. It's also important to note that on visits, we're starting to get middle school counselors coming to the 10th grade visits at the Career Center, so they can get a better idea of what their students could choose down the road. So that outreach has started as well. So I think we're headed in a good direction. Could we do more? Probably, but we are doing more than we have in the past, and trying to collaborate with the counseling services in the partner schools. And Jay uses a good word. He wants to call them partner schools instead of sending schools, and I do think that is a good way to refer to them as partner schools, because we need to see them as they need to see this as a partnership for their students' benefit. So.
Yeah. How are we doing as far as getting homeschoolers to come visit?
Brenda could answer that probably better than I could. Maybe Jay could answer that. I don't have a solid answer for that. I do know that they do come to visit. I do know that personal visits, one-on-one visits, have been arranged as well for various programs. Jay, is there anything you could add to that?
No, yeah, that's all I would say. And Suzanne, I wonder if you're thinking about, I know before we had talked about connecting, like getting the homeschool list from the state, right, and then being able to send information out to every homeschool family. And I don't know if that has happened. So that's something we can check with Brenda on. But as Tim said, I know she's in touch with a number of homeschool families, and they come and visit, and so it's certainly very accessible. But do all of them know about it? Possibly not.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to add one other thing. Our pre-tech programs, we have a separate Middlebury section for each of our 4 pre-tech programs. And each of those sections are either full with 16 students or close to full. So I think that also bodes well for, as long as those are students who are going to continue on, into technical programs, we're getting a good crop of, of pre-tech students. And I had another thought, but I lost it here. Anyway, maybe it'll come to me later. But it was another, the video. So you saw in Tim's update that we're redoing the pre-tech video. Actually, James, who's here filming for MCTV tonight as well, has been here the past 2 days, interviewing students, pre-tech instructors, and just taking some general footage of them in action. to put together a new pre-tech video because we have 3 new instructors for pre-tech than we did when that video was done during COVID. One program that the name has changed from Plant and Animal Science to Introduction to Agricultural Sciences. So we just realized that's another way, and our plan is to then send that to our middle schools to be able to show to their students, what the opportunities are for 9th and 10th grades at the Career Center.
I would just say one thing that I'm hoping when we're choosing students to interview and to put into that video that we're using as broad of a paintbrush in our student population as possible so that it doesn't come out looking like just one type of student is in those pre-tech classes.
I can't guarantee that. I just got a thumbs up, I think, from James maybe that there was a wide
Yeah, there's
variety
a number of
students.
different students.
Make
sure to include.
I know mechanical science. The one girl that's in the class on the day that the class happened today, she was one of the ones who was interviewed for mechanical science. So I assume that's kind of what you're talking about, Suzanne, because we don't have a lot of females in some of those pre-tech programs.
Well, not only the gender, but socioeconomic statuses all across the board. Is just hoping that it doesn't just portray like one socioeconomic status, and even if you have males and females and non-traditional pieces, then it may look like we're just here for the middle class or something like that, but we're here for everyone. So to be able to make sure that we pull it from all aspects.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And the other thing that Jay could have mentioned, or maybe was on trying to recall, was the fact that Middlebury 10th grade visitor population was significantly up from prior years by a wide margin. So that's also a good sign.
Good. Board, any other questions, comments? It's under action agenda, but I don't think we can really take much action on it other than say you're going in the right direction.
We'll keep trying.
And the presentations, I know the presentation at ACSD, other than that one negative comment, went over very well. Christina, you've seen it at Virgin's.
Yes, yeah, everybody was, super impressed and happy. Not happy with the numbers, of course, but, really happy about what's happening at the Career Center. You didn't get very many questions.
No, not really.
When are you presenting to Mount Abraham?
Yeah. Excuse me, that'll be on the 20th.
20th.
Come on out. I don't mind some support.
Oh, all right. So next item on the agenda, discussion of stipends.
I requested that be on the agenda. I would like to start that with a motion. I would like to charge the director to report back to the board the criteria and financial impact of providing a $500 stipend to teachers who served during the pandemic.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a second to the motion. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I would ask that you vote this motion down. I do not think it's appropriate to use taxpayer money to provide bonuses to any employees.
Thank you. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Kim?
We recently negotiated a contract where there was a fair amount of conversation regarding other stipends that are offered to our faculty. Not the amount specifically, but that there is an opportunity for people to get, quote, extra money. There also was a conversation and understanding that there were no federal monies coming our way. And that was pretty clearly discussed early on in negotiations. And Judd and Steve, please feel you want to add anything to that. I also feel that it would constitute, a side letter opening up the contract again, which I'm not in favor of, and I believe our legal team would agree with me. And where this is coming from is a concern because, again, we just negotiated a contract and had all of these smaller discussions during that interim time. Thank you.
John, did you want to say something? Steve, okay.
No, I didn't have anything in specific that I wanted to say, but since you called on me, I was on that negotiations committee, and we look at the budgets very, very closely. Tim is going through a budget right now. I think I would say the same sort of thing as I recall saying to the teachers early on, that in a perfect world, it would be great to be able to hand out tons and tons of extra compensations here and there for all sorts of things that any human, in this case teachers, do. But that's not necessarily the world we live in. Personally, it's not the way I can operate. There are things that I like that I'd like to have for my business that I have to say no to because they're just not in my budget. So it concerns me just trying to keep finding more dollars in a budget that is already very stretched. Thank you.
Steve, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I know that in the partner schools, I believe, all handed out this type of a bonus for COVID work, and I'm curious. I'm afraid I can't recall how Mount Abe did it, whether it was through ESSER or not. I don't know, Christina, whether you remember how Virgins did that.
We had surplus money, Steve, that we used. We had a surplus. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw you guys use the ESSER funds, and I was like, darn, why didn't we do that?
I can't imagine how else we would have done it. I just can't remember off the top of my head right now. And I don't know, Suzanne, if Middlebury did anything.
Middlebury did it, and they used ESSER funds.
Okay. Go ahead.
Steve, you done?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. The other group that we're not talking about is the staff. Those people were there in most cases 24/7, cleaning the building and keeping all the viruses and so on at bay. And again, a separate contract that was negotiated with them. And they're not included in the motion. Not that I suggest that happen, but again, in reference to the contract, those things were discussed at that point in time. Thank you.
Tiffany, you're looking like you may want to say something, but I'm not sure. No?
No, I was just appreciating the conversation from everyone. I appreciate Tim's point, and I'm so happy that we do know how the other schools were able to do it, and it sounds like we have already exhausted that resource. And as much as we value the teachers, I agree with Kim. The environmental service work, no one should be left behind is the way I feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. And so just a point of context, Tiffany, the other schools all received ESSER funds. We, as an independent career tech center, were not eligible for ESSER funds. The only way we could have had access to ESSER funds would be if we wrote a budget for what we would like to use those ESSER funds for, and then go to the other schools and say, we didn't get any ESSER funds, but we'd like to have some ESSER funds to do this budget with, and see if they would be willing to share. That's the only way we could have gotten any ESSER funds. So I don't really like going around begging. It's not my style. So, Jay?
Suzanne, just on that note, we did actually do that in one instance, both last year and for this current year, to fund the Inclusive Education Project work. Both Mount Abe and Addison Northwest were willing to each pay $3,000 for the work that a small group of us are doing with Katie Novak and her consultancy company. To work on more inclusive practices within the Career Center. So anyway, so we had a very specific thing. We were able to say, hey, can you help us out with this? Because they are participating in it as well. And they were willing to give us, that money to do it. So, but as you're saying, it's a lot more complicated to, to ask for other things, to help fund the Career Center through those ESSER funds from our partner districts.
But wasn't that program also that they wanted the Career Center to join in, so that was why they paid for it?
Last year, maybe, because I was not as directly involved. Dana is the one who worked that out with them, that they were willing to use their ESSER funds to help us participate. So we didn't have to use our own budget to do it. And I asked them then again this year because we were continuing to participate. So they were willing to do it again for us.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Christina or Steve, is that your hand up?
Yes. I wanted to point out in regard to a couple of comments. We are talking about a maximum of $10,000, which to me is not tons and tons and tons of money. Number two, ESSER funding was only used in 2 of the 3 sending districts. It sounds like everyone is convinced that ESSER funding was used in all cases. So there are other ways to do this. But also point out that the budget is currently down $3,000 in salaries. So all those factors together, maximum of $8,500 could be offset by the $3,800 that is being is low in there, and that gives us about $4,000, maybe $5,000. And there may be other criteria that eliminate people from that list of 20. I don't think this is a big ask. It's not tons and tons of money. I don't understand the resistance to rewarding those people who served us so well during the pandemic.
Thank you, Steve. Is there any other comments? Christina, was that a hand up or?
No, just
Okay.
mulling over all the conversation.
Okay. I just see motion, so
Yeah.
sorry. Steve Rooney, that is a hand up.
So Steve, would you want to add the staff to your proposal?
I mean, people have said that I shouldn't. I have no problem adding the staff. That's another $4,000. I think is what the. There's 8 staff. Is that correct? There are 8 people, and they may not qualify either because, there's these criteria out there that say you have to have been there from the start of the pandemic to the end of the pandemic. You have to be currently employed. So that's why I asked for maybe some criteria, the director to develop some criteria modeled on some of the sending, what were we calling, they're not calling them sending schools anymore, we're calling them cooperating? Partner schools.
Yeah.
Asking the partner schools what they did and seeing what that is. I am speculating only on what the financial impact is. That's why I think it's appropriate for the director to do that research. I would be happy to do that, but I've been told that it's not appropriate for me to go around and ask. So, if we want to have a separate motion for the staff, I would be fine with that as well. If people don't want to add this to the motion.
Anything else, Steve? Because Nick Costin has his hand up.
No, go ahead.
Okay, Nick.
So we're a board under policy governance, and our only employee is the superintendent. And my thinking is that he's the guy sort of running the show on an operational basis, and we should respect his opinion.
Thank you, Nick. If there's not, is there any more conversation or questions on the motion? Because I'd like to bring the motion to a vote, if possible.
I have a quick question, Suzanne.
Oh, yes, Bill.
So I'm confused. Kim, is this something that people already expect from the discussions that you were having with the contract?
Not at all. No,
Yeah.
Okay,
no.
that was my question.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion or questions? since I am the chair, I only vote if there's a tie. So I'm going to ask for those people that are online, if they use their Zoom hands to vote with, and for people in the room, if you leave your hand up long enough for me to acknowledge that I've seen it.
Madam
So
Chair,
there is
Madam Chair,
a motion.
point of order, I would like to call for a roll call vote on this, so that the representatives are recorded as to what they voted.
Okay. The reason I was asking for people to raise their hands and leave them up was because then I would know who had voted and who had not. I do have to have Linda record only if there's any nay votes or abstentions. So the hands up would allow for that as well. Would that work for you, Steve, or not?
No, I would like a roll call vote that says that this director voted this way.
Okay. There's a motion on the table to pay, as you call it, a stipend?
I can read the motion again.
Please.
To charge the director to report back to the board the criteria and financial impact of providing a $500 stipend to teachers who served during the pandemic.
Okay, that was moved and seconded. Since Steve Orzik has asked for a, whoops, sorry, Judd. Did you have something you want to say?
You're muted.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm not losing sight of something because of wording. This is just asking the superintendent to assess the situation. Steve, could you read that one more time?
Yes, that's correct. It says, charge the director to report back to the board the criteria and financial impact of providing a $500 stipend to teachers who served during the pandemic. It is not to do that, it is to provide information about that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so,
You're essentially asking me to do something I'm adamantly philosophically opposed to. I'm philosophically opposed to using taxpayer money to provide bonuses to employees.
Well,
I just want to make sure everyone understands what you're asking me to do.
and thank you. We have lost Bill Peterman somehow. Jay, do you see him anywhere? Or?
Yeah, he appears to have left the meeting, Suzanne. I'm not sure why, but he's not showing up on our Zoom panel.
Okay. Patrice, do you happen to have his cell phone number? Because I know last week he said his computer had died or something, so.
She's calling him.
Okay. While Patrice is doing that, it's been asked for a roll call vote. So those that are in favor of the motion, I'm going to go around the room and call each person.
Did you get cut off?
Call each person by name,
Okay, can I put you on
and
the phone for a minute?
you can tell me how you'd like. If you're voting yes, okay, and then I'll go back around and ask if you're voting no or if you're abstaining. Christina?
I'm gonna have to vote no.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said I'm gonna have to vote no.
Okay, I guess we'll just take both, any
Yeah.
type of vote.
Sorry, I'm not voting yes. I
Okay.
was confusing.
Steve Orzik,
I vote yes.
Kim Farnham,
I vote no.
I'll vote no.
Steve Mooney,
Wait a minute.
I'm going to vote no for now.
Nick Costin,
No.
Judd,
Vote no?
Tiffany,
No.
and did we find Bill
Yeah,
Biederman?
Bill's on the phone.
Bill's on the phone. Bill? Say it again.
Bill,
No.
he's a no?
Yes, he's a no.
Correct.
No, he's a no, correct. Sorry.
Okay, so there's 7 no's and 1 yes. Motion fails to pass. So that is the outcome of that vote. Thank you, board. It was a great conversation, and I think that everyone had some very thoughtful and nice comments to say, and I'll leave it at that. Moving on to the informational agenda, does everybody had the reports? There's 2 in there that I will attend to after we've seen if there's any questions or comments around any of the other reports that were in the file. Any questions, concerns, thoughts? No? Okay.
Suzanne, one thing, sorry.
Steve, Rooney?
Yeah, Tim, I know that you had mentioned that, was it AOE that was spinning you around again on the CLNA report?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, has that new information, corrections gone back to them yet?
They're finalized. I'm sleeping on it tonight. I have to submit it tomorrow.
Okay.
I'm not anticipating, you never know, but I'm not anticipating issues.
Okay.
So.
And are you planning on sort of publishing a new version of the whole thing once it's sort of accepted by them?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's public information. I'll make that available to you once it's approved. I can produce a PDF from the grant management system and share that out. I'd rather wait till it's actually approved to do that.
Yeah, sure.
You know, if they make us make some other change or something. And at first, when I saw the changes they wanted me to make this time again, I was a little put off. But when I really got down to it, it really wasn't. The changes that they were asking for really were not significant in the whole scheme of things.
Yeah.
So I'm anticipating that we should get approval. And I found out today we're not the only ones in that boat. There's several other schools in the same boat.
Yeah. I think it's a rather useful document in the end. Certainly would be a good start for looking at a strategic plan, I would think.
It absolutely is a good start for that, and should be used for that. And some of the things that are identified have already in the improvement process, but there's a lot more work to be done to get back to where we need to be. And so the next superintendent will spend some time, I believe, with this CLNA document and using that as part of the strategic planning process, which would be very wise.
Thanks.
Great. Anybody else have any?
I do,
Judd?
Suzanne.
Whoops, Judd, and then Christina.
Okay.
Okay. Was this the document that Miss Durkee made the edits on and asked you to get back to her on?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. I was amazed by, as I read that, thinking, holy cow, she must have gone through that document, or their staff, with a fine-tooth comb. I couldn't believe the details that they were able to pick out and ask you to respond to. I was blown away. So I'm sure it's a challenge to meet those demands, but I was really impressed with them in a weird way.
Well, and when they said up front, how well we had done when we submitted it, and then to come back with that long laundry list, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
But Christina?
Related to the community engagement report and our discussion when we met about the logo, I just was wondering where we are with that. Are you all set with what's happening with the logo, Tim and Jay?
Yeah. The default is the gray. If we want to incorporate blue into the logo, we'd bring that to you in January.
Oh, okay.
That kind of thing. But
gotcha.
We have a board-approved logo that we can run with. If we want to add some color to it, it wouldn't dramatically change significantly, I think is the word. It wouldn't significantly change the logo, but any change to the logo I'd want to bring to the board anyway,
Okay.
even if it's minor.
I like blue
And
personally.
community, oops, Christina, in the community engagement, we had asked, or we had been told something about it being in the floor. Is it going in the floor?
Well, right now in the specs call for it to go into the floor. And we can, and if it's going to go in the floor, they're going to need to have that logo image in January. We're not convinced that that's the wisest approach. And we're going to be talking about that at the next owners meeting. Because if you think about it, the logo that's in the floor now was put there, I don't know, 20 years ago or 25 years ago, and it's nothing, it doesn't remotely resemble anything we're using right now. So to put something in the floor like that may not be the best way to go. Now putting it on signage, that's different because signage can be easily changed, but to pull up a floor because the logo changes doesn't seem to me to make a lot of sense. So maybe we would do something different by putting it into the some kind of all-weather carpet at the entryway or something like that, or on the wall. Where it could be,
on the wall.
yeah, it could be painted over at some point if it changes.
Yes.
So yeah, we're going to have those conversations.
So Bill Biederman put in the chat, can we do it in a rug instead, much cheaper? And he says pricing is 10 to 1. And my comment back to Bill was that was part of the conversation, was possibly just do it as a rug instead of figuring out how to put it in the floor.
Is this right in the entry?
Yes.
So if it was printed into a walk-off mat, that would also work.
Right. That is one of the options. That or putting something on the wall.
Yeah. I mean,
But putting it into the floor.
mucking up your logo on it every winter day is also.
Yeah. It does seem kind of odd to walk on your logo.
If this was the Treasury or something, we might think about it.
Yeah, well, that logo would have to change.
Yeah.
We're gonna provide slippers for everyone, so when they arrive, they can take their shoes off.
Yeah.
Bill says this will keep us from delaying any construction.
Yes. It'd be a huge hurdle.
Yeah.
Can we go back? Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I was thinking about the homeschool list. I'm curious, is that something that the engagement committee could work on?
So
Or does that have to come directly from the administration?
my understanding of the homeschool list is that we can't have it. That we can submit information to the state and ask them, like give them some parameters and say, could you get this information out to the homeschool group? And they would send it out, and then hopefully we would hear back from them. But we personally cannot have that list.
Right, I'm just saying that the effort to do whatever process is appropriate, is that something the engagement committee can execute, or is that something that the administration needs to?
I think it's something like community engagement could work on and then bring to the board with what they want to send out, and then.
We can also, Brenda's on, and Tim and I can talk with Brenda more too about what, a good way to connect with homeschool families as well.
It just seemed to me to fall under the engagement sort of
Right.
umbrella.
Yeah, because we're community engagement, so it's a way of engaging with that portion of the community that we know is out there, but we don't really have a good way of reaching out to them, other than maybe an ad in the paper, if that's, we could go that route, but that still wouldn't get all of them. Any other questions on any of the other items? So I do superintendent search update. The only thing I'm going to say publicly is that we will have 3 in-person, yes, I said 3 in-person candidates in January. Jay has a group he's responsible for pulling together Tim has a group he's responsible for, and I have a group that I'm responsible for. And that's where I'm going to leave it. And then the other thing, the board roles and responsibilities, I just would like to make sure that each committee chair knows who their administrator is that they need to reach out to in setting their agendas. And community engagement, it's Tim and Jay. Facilities, it's Tim and John. Budget and policy, it's Tim and Mark. And then whoever the secretary, clerk, minute taker, whatever you want to call the person, for each of those committees, the minutes go to Patrice, and she will see to it that they get on the website. And remember, we do have a time limit on getting those minutes in so that we stay within statute, and they're within 5 days.
5 days, that's what you said last night.
Of the meeting, and that includes Saturdays and Sundays. So, so please, committee chairs, I hope you took note of who your administrators are, and please work with them on setting your different committee agendas with them. Kim and I, or sometimes it's just me, work with Tim to set this agenda, and we try to include as much on the agenda as what we've heard from either from committees or from people that have said to us, hey, you know, can we talk about this or whatever. So we try to incorporate as much as we can. And then the only other thing that I'm going to say before we go to policy 4.1, and we do have one item for executive session, is I just want to say thank you to the board from the very bottom of my heart. We have had, since last January to now, we've dealt with a lot of issues, and a lot of issues that most boards wish they do not have to deal with. And I want to thank all of you for all of your hard work over the year. And I hope that over the holidays, everyone is fully rested. They have no sick children at home, Judd. And that everyone gets a chance to enjoy the holidays with their family. And now that we're going to get snow, means you can go skiing or snowshoeing or sliding. All of those things that are so much fun to do. So thank you all. And now I will ask for someone to kindly take on policy 4.1, governing style. John.
I thought it was a good meeting. It is just about an hour, and we had a couple minutes delay. I think I was one of the later people on. I really appreciated the robust discussion around a tender and challenging issue. As a member of the Budget and Policy Committee, I've been wrestling with this one because Steve has mentioned it. So I really appreciate how much discussion was able to be had around that. Other than that, I hope that that's sort of an indicator of how this board operates and gets along, even if we can't all come to the same decision. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So I am going to give us like 5-minute max so that MCTV can take their stuff down. We say goodbye to you, Brenda. Hope you have great holidays. And we say goodbye to Jay and Patrice. And since Tim, you are in charge of your co-owner of the meeting, you can run it, and you can take us out of executive session after we've discussed this issue.
Okay.
So 5 minutes, guys, and it shouldn't take us more than 5 minutes in executive session.
We need a motion.
Yes.
A motion to adjourn.
No, a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
Sorry.
It was moved by Judd and I think seconded by Kim to go into executive session for personnel. It's 7:05 currently.
Where are we going for?
We're going to stay
I'm gonna have to stay
right
logged in.
here in this room. Jay?
Suzanne, I'm gonna have, Chris.